Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Oner Podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next door neighbor and lifelong best friend.
Kramer, England.
And we're talking about a director who does a lot of big, long, unbroken takes.
Yes.
The guy, the film bro guy, one of the guys.
Yep. The dude. Well,
Yep. One
not the
of,
dude.
not, I mean, the dude maybe has to go to like the Coens together. I really do think everyone's finding out that the Coens apart is not the same thing as the Coens together.
It's not. It's not. They're a really dynamic duo. And
Yeah.
I could say this movie felt very much like a Coen brothers movie. Did you feel like that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's
And
absolutely
in a good
elements
way. In a
in a
good way.
in a good way. But we're talking about Paul Thomas Anderson. We're talking about his new movie, One Battle After Another, in theaters right now. But yeah, for a lot of people, for film aficionados, for cinephiles,
Yes.
he's one of the guys. He's one
Yep.
of the I've been living in PTA world for the last week. I watched in the last well, so we did Magnolia on this channel,
Yep.
and then I watched Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread
Oh wow.
and this movie. He's so good. He's
He he's an extremely talented he's one of those filmmakers that he makes it look so easy and so
yeah.
natural. And it's like, dude, how are you so good?
Oh,
I
it's
get jealous of him,
like watching Boogie Nights, I was like, this is his second movie. And it's just like, it's so confidently made. It's just
Yeah.
so. I saw a YouTube video that was talking about how his style has relaxed in his older age, that it's clear when he's younger that he's like mimicking Scorsese
Yeah, yeah.
and you can see it like in Boogie Nights and in Magnolia, you can feel that like that kind of kinetic energy of the camera, that it's always moving and these long takes and stuff,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
he's trying to be like Scorsese in Goodfellas and
Yeah, yeah.
Taxi Driver, and do these kind of but it's still like, even though he's mimicking filmmakers that he respects, he's doing such a good job
Oh,
of
yeah.
like
Well,
of
and it doesn't feel like a mimic.
no,
Like,
no.
I can see what you're saying, but it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like he's trying to mimic them like you're talking about, which makes it even more frustrating because it's like, how are you so good?
I know. And then watching, like when I watched There Will Be Blood the other night, which I'm like,
Yeah.
he's one of those directors too, similar to early Wes Anderson, like the early, like the first like 5 or 6 Wes Anderson films. Anytime I watch one of them, I'm like, oh, is this my favorite one? Is this the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
one? And he's one of those directors where every time I watch one of his movies, I'm like, wait, is this the best one? I don't know. But There Will Be Blood might be the best that I watched of the bunch. But that opening sequence where it's like 20 minutes and no one talks, and it's
Yeah,
just him working in the mines and like
yeah.
finding oil. I just was like, how is he so effortlessly good at this? And
Yeah.
he's such a good team up with Daniel Day-Lewis because they're both so effortlessly good
Yes.
at their
Yes.
craft, that the team up is just like, man, it's just like watching two people who make this look so natural and effortless. And
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah,
the other thing that I really, really like and respect about P.T. Anderson is that he tries different things. Like,
yeah,
he made Magnolia. He made his first 3 movies, then he makes Magnolia, or Hard 8, then Boogie Nights, then Magnolia, and then he's like, "You know what? I gotta make a 90-minute movie, and it's gotta be a comedy, ultimately a romantic comedy,
mhm,
and it's an Adam Sandler movie."
yeah,
And it's like, and so he like goes from these really, really art house movies, which Punch Drunk Love is also an art house movie, but he took this huge risk in making it 90 minutes. It's like 95 minutes or whatever, but he like made something completely different. And I feel like he did that with this movie too. He's like, you know what? I'm going to try and make something that's more mainstream. It's not really
well, and
mainstream, but it's like it's his version of mainstream.
yeah. Well, and yeah, and also, just Hard Eight and Boogie Nights and Magnolia are also like narratively very different films. Like they're
Yeah.
all just
Yeah.
about very different things, and how he sort of at least for those early, I mean, for a while, he keeps a lot of the same actors around and
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the rotation, which
Uh-huh.
I always like that. I always kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
when a director's just like, I found some people that I like, who I work well with, and I'm gonna bring
Yeah.
up because why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, you're right. He always tries new things, and you're absolutely right that uh, that One Battle After Another is another example of Paul Thomas Anderson's willingness to continue to surprise his audience by stepping into new areas that we haven't seen him in before. And it's probably the thing that I admire the most about this film. And it's also probably the thing that ultimately let me down a little bit about the film because I just have a certain expectation of,
Right.
like, a certain je ne sais quoi from a PTA movie, and this movie just felt the most mainstream I've
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
seen anything from him. It's just like it's just a movie. It's like got entertaining action set pieces and car chase scenes and you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, I'm just not used to that from him,
Yeah.
but it's all but I respect the hell out of it. I
Oh,
respect
yeah.
the willingness to be like and it is the thing that you and I have talked about on this show that kind of bothers us about Wes Anderson is
Right.
sort of the squandered potential of this amazing voice that came out of the 90s and the way that as his career has gone on, he's just sort of retreated further and further into himself
Yeah.
and just gotten it looks like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy every
Mhm.
movie that you see. And Paul Thomas Anderson is a director who always and a writer who always feels like he's trying to create new characters with a different cadence, and every s every character he's ever written has such an effortless uniqueness to that specific character. That's another
Yes.
thing is, like, I've never seen a writer who's so good at hiding himself in the writing process and just letting the characters speak in their authentic voice,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when I watch a Wes Anderson movie, all the characters sound
Yeah.
like they're in a Wes Anderson movie, and I don't say that as like a
Yeah.
insult
No,
necessarily.
no.
There's a style, there's a rhythm, there's a cadence.
Right.
Even when I watch like a, you know, you watch an Aaron Sorkin movie, and I love Aaron Sorkin's
Yes.
writing, but
Yeah.
there's a style and a cadence and a rhythm to Aaron Sorkin's writing. You watch, you know, a Celine Song movie or a Richard Linklater movie, and there's sort of a voice there to the writer that's
Mhm.
recognizable. And Paul Thomas Anderson is a great screenwriter, but movie to movie, the the writing matches what the character needs it to be. And
Yeah.
so the voice of the character just feel the reason why his characters feel so effortlessly authentic is because he's like, I'm not interested in sort of repeating, he's not pulling from a bag of tricks. He's
Yeah.
just trying to create an authentic like person. So that's the reason why Daniel Plainview sounds so different from Renault Woodcock in Phantom Thread. They're such different
Yes.
people,
Yes.
and they're written so differently and performed so differently by the same actor. Or like the reason why like Phil Hoffman's character in Boogie Nights is so wildly different from his character in The Master, and they just have their own thing going on.
Yeah.
And in this movie, again, it's like, if you didn't tell me Paul Thomas Anderson wrote and directed this, I wouldn't necessarily be able to guess. And
Yeah.
I mean that as both a compliment and as something that I was like, man, I think I was kind of hoping for a little bit
Right.
more
Right.
of like the classic PTA sauce, but also I just respect so much that this movie was like,
Yeah.
no, it's just like, what if I just did a straight up movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
well, and the thing about how he writes as well is that he writes characters that actors want to play,
Mhm.
and he writes them in a way that makes them interesting, especially for actors. It's like, and he apparently is a very good actors director. He likes to work with actors. Actors like to work with him. And when you write parts that aren't just like standard, like if they have some meat to them that an actor can do, which you could speak more to this than I could, but if you have an actor that, I mean, he writes this piece for, Benicio del Toro, could have just been a very standard character,
Mhm.
but like he lets him make this character very unique in a really, really good way that stands out for a
Well,
very standard character.
that's the thing is he does write very good dialogue, but he also he just hires really strong actors
Yeah.
and lets them take it and go. And
Yes.
I saw an interview where someone was talking to Daniel Day-Lewis at a There Will
Yeah.
Be Blood junket, and they were like, it must be really nice to work with a very hands-on director like Paul Thomas Anderson. And immediately Daniel Day-Lewis goes, hands off, hands off. They go, "What?" And he goes, "No, he's very hands off." And they go, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "No, yeah." He's like, he goes, "And I actually
Yeah,
think it's a testament to his confidence in his craft that he knows what shot he's setting up and he's taking care of that. And he
right.
knows what he's working on with his, but he's like, when it comes to his process with me, he trusts that I understand the material. And he mostly like he'll block the scene because a
Mhm,
lot of times he likes to do these wide shots that require a lot of blocking. And he's
mhm.
like, but he's not telling me how to what's the best way to deliver the line. He's like he has a lot of confidence in the people that he's hired to do the
Right.
jobs that he's hired them to do, and he has a lot of confidence in just his ability to he knows what he needs for the edit when he's shooting the movie.
Yeah.
So, if he's not getting something that he knows he needs for the edit, he might come up and say something to an actor. But for the most part, he's like, "I got the world's best actors working for me. Uh, I'm gonna tell them where to stand, and they're gonna knock it out of the park."
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he even does he sometimes he doesn't have the world's best actor, and I mean, he took a chance on Adam Sandler,
Yeah.
which, I kinda talked about in our Oner Funner video, but, he took a
Mhm.
big chance, and he proved that Adam Sandler can be a great actor when he wants to be and when you let him be, right?
Yeah.
Which is also another thing that's like, because I mean, if you have if you have an actor like Daniel Day-Lewis, you know he's gonna give a great performance no matter what. But when you have an actor like Adam Sandler before he showed that he could be a good actor, I mean, that's also a huge risk that somehow he saw that nobody else really saw, and he kind of brought it out of him, you know? So just I mean, we're really singing his praises because he's a pretty amazing director.
He's one of the greats and one of the best to ever do it, and I don't think that that's too hyperbolic or too sensationalist to say. Um, okay, so general thoughts about this movie without doing spoilers, and we've already been sort of doing that, but no spoilers up to this point, so don't worry, you're still watching the spoiler-free version potentially. But uh, what are your general feelings about one battle after another?
My general feelings are that I liked it. As we were talking, like I liked it a lot. I had a lot of fun. Very similar to Weapons in many ways, in the sense that like there's a lot of things that you could poke holes in or be like, this doesn't work or this doesn't make any sense. But the movie is so entertaining and I was so engaged the whole time that it didn't bother me to the point that I didn't like it. There's still some things that like, "Oh, that's a little interesting, but it was so fun to watch and so engaging that I really, really enjoyed the movie.
Now, okay, so what I'll say generally about this movie is, and this is kind of true with me and all of Paul Thomas Anderson's films, typically is I always enjoy them more the second time I see them.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
just a lot going on. His films are very dense because they
Yes.
have so many characters and there's so much great dialogue that's so subtly great, and it's great in a way where like there's a lot of lines in his films that you can't really understand why that's such a great line
Yeah.
until you see the end of the movie. You know, like where when you come back to the film, you're like, oh, I didn't notice that the first time because I didn't know the context of what that line would come to mean, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
so I do believe this is I want to preface everything I'm about to say before all of the film fans gasp at this kind of sacrilegious take I'm going to have about this film, that I do believe my scores for this film are going to go higher with subsequent watches, and I do want to get back to the theater to watch it again before it's out of theaters.
Nice.
I would love to see it in like VistaVision or like, you know, something like that.
Oh, I wish I could, man. I wish I
Yeah. But in general, very good. I really enjoyed this movie. I was captivated from beginning to end. Great performances throughout from everyone in the cast. Sean Penn gives just a really interesting, weird
could.
performance as a villain in this movie.
Yeah,
Leo DiCaprio's doing his thing in just a really kind of fun way where it's like
yeah,
he's not necessarily doing something you've never seen him do, but I said this to Olivia. I was like, I'll say this about Leonardo DiCaprio and his team. They pick well. Like he only
yeah.
does a movie every 2 or 3 years, you know? And
Mhm.
it's always something that's pretty good. And
Yeah,
like they know how to pick the right projects for
yeah,
him. And you know, whoever his if it's just him or if it's him and his agent and his managers, they usually like they pick the right things for him at the right time.
yeah.
And he's a lot of fun in this movie. What I will say about this film is I think because the reviews were so hot on Rotten Tomatoes, that everyone was so high on this film, and everyone was coming out saying, "Maybe this is, like, in the top 2 or 3 best films he's ever made." My expectation was very high, and because I've been sort of steeped in PTA world, I was like, "What's he going to do
Yeah.
that will top the way that I feel when I watch The Master or Phantom Thread or There Will Be Blood or Boogie
Yeah.
Nights or
Yeah.
Magnolia? What's he going to do in this film?" And I think that ultimately I just having the film be so kind of straightforward and just like
Yes.
what you see is what you get, at least on a first viewing, I got to the end of it and I was just kinda like, yeah, that was very good. And of
Yeah.
course it would be. And it's sort of almost the way that I felt after Licorice Pizza, where I was just kind of like, yeah, good movie. Solid. But I was like, I'm not sure that I'm ready to say one of the best he's ever made. There's something about like a movie like There Will Be Blood or a movie like Phantom Thread, which I watched last night, which like the whole time I'm watching it, I'm just going, this is a masterpiece. Like everything about this is so perfect. Like the score, the
Yeah.
music, and the every moment is just so immaculately crafted, and I'm just like wondering like how do you make a movie like this? And one battle after another, it just felt like a movie that like other less impressive directors could pull off. They get
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying that necessarily as a knock. Like it's almost like I'm grading this film on the Paul Thomas Anderson curve, where I'm just like, well, held up against your other work, I'm not. But also the reason why I think it might just feel different to me is because he intentionally made it different
Yeah.
from his other films.
You know,
And
the funny thing about what you're talking about is I completely understand what you're talking about,
mhm,
and I had many of the same thoughts. So before I saw it, though, my friend at work was like, "All right," he told me his thoughts. Like, he's like, "It was good." He's like, "I don't think it's amazing." He's like, "But it is." He felt the same. Like he didn't think it was his favorite Wes Anderson movie. Um,
Paul Thomas Anderson.
sorry, Paul
Yeah,
Thomas Anderson
yeah.
movie. And I was, and my ex, like I had heard all these great reviews of this movie, and I'm like, there's no way that it's gonna be what I'm thinking it's gonna be. So I had low expectations. Now I really enjoyed the movie, and I really did because I was like, wow, this is like it's kind of what I thought it was gonna be. Uh, but also like from a mainstream perspective, if I was a mainstream audience member, there are a lot of things, kind of like I talked about, that you could really nitpick. Like Leonardo DiCaprio has nothing, he has very, very little to do with the plot of this movie. He's just like, he's always trying something, but he ultimately doesn't have any real sway on the main storyline of the movie. Right.
Yeah.
And like, but I loved watching him, and I loved watching him and Benicio del Toro because they were
I'd say
so fun to watch.
I'd say he has a significant impact on the first act of the
He
film. Like his
does,
yeah.
yes, but
Mhm,
after that point, it's
yeah.
it's as but that's just like on the surface level of the plot. He doesn't really, but he's an active character at least, you know.
Yeah,
But like, it's too long,
it is.
and like the car chase sequence is fun, but it's also really boring as a car chase sequence compared to like, the Dark Knight or Fast and Furious or whatever
But I
modern car chase you want to see.
see, and but that's one of those moments where I was like, this is the most like this is what I'm looking for, is something that feels
Yes,
different and bold. I really
right.
like the execution of that sequence.
I loved it too.
Yeah.
And this is me from the mainstream perspective.
Mhm.
Like if I'm just like a
Yeah.
guy who like has no idea who PTA is,
Right.
I'm gonna go in there and think, what the crap? Like that was so boring. Right. But I loved it too, especially the over the hills going over
Uh-huh.
like, and
Uh-huh.
I loved the payoff of that. I thought it was awesome. And I loved how it looked. Like it
Yeah.
was really, but the mainstream thing, there's a lot of these problems with it, right? And this is the other thing that we all have to realize, and we all have to admit, I love the movie. This movie has bombed. In no way is it going to make back its budget. They spent
Yeah.
$130 million on this movie, and I'm wondering, why did you spend so much money on this movie?
It
Like,
doesn't feel like $130 million,
no,
honestly, it really doesn't.
it doesn't.
It feels like a movie. It feels very kind of indie and shoot from the hip the way that his earlier films did,
Yes.
where it's like
Yeah.
they're just sort of using locations that don't feel that expensive and don't feel that like flashy. Like
Yep.
again, watching There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread, like those films feel significantly more expensive to me as period pieces
Yes.
than this, and The Master feels significantly more expensive to me than this movie does. Uh that's interesting to me that but and that does bum me out that it's bombing. I remember I watched Chris Stuckman's review and he was like, I
Yeah.
watched this in the theater on opening weekend with me and one other person. And he's like,
Yeah.
and that really scared me that I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, no one cares about
Yeah.
like original filmmaking from one of the best filmmakers alive.
Right.
And that does suck. Um, so I will say before we get into spoilers, do go see this movie
Yes.
in the theater if you're curious. I think that it's a very relevant movie. I think that he nailed a lot of things like right on the head that are very relevant to our current
Oh,
moment
yeah. Yeah.
in a socio-political sense. And it was like, boy, he was really had his finger on the pulse while he was writing and talking about this. And I think that it's, you know, I would say that in some ways, the commentary here from him as a writer is more pointed than it usually is. Usually he kind of hangs back and lets the audience kind of make up their own mind.
Yes.
And it feels a little bit more, again, this is an adaptation of a book, and he does that a lot. He adapts novels a lot.
Mhm.
But I think he also puts a lot of his own perspective into the
Yeah.
adaptations that he
Yeah.
writes.
It's a loose adaptation from what I understand.
Yeah. And so I will say it's very relevant. It's got a lot of interesting themes, great characters, an engaging movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
I agree that there's some stuff that could be trimmed in the edit, but that's also just not our boy's style. He just likes to
No. Yeah,
he like
he likes
you
to have
know.
it long. But
Uh-huh.
I do agree. Also, this is kind of a like it's on the nose.
Yeah.
Everything is on the nose.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and it's like good, bad. It is totally relevant to our times, but there's like there's no room for interpretation. It's kind of like, no, this is what it is. Not necessarily a bad thing, but kind of a thing that I was surprised by because it is just so straightforward.
Yeah. But yeah, go check this out if you're curious.
Yeah.
We're going to get into our spoiler section of the video, so be warned.
Yep.
Spoiler warnings now, and you have that's the end of no spoiler section